stops us in our tracks. Bravely we prove in our striving, trudging together each day. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Almost there, guys. It's moving pretty slow. Almost there. And now you guys know why I'm going to make the beginning like a minute long instead. All right. Oh, I'm done. Oh, nobody's here. It's because it's moving slow. YouTube says I'm live. All right. Let Facebook catch up here. There it goes. Now Facebook is catching up. What does this look like? I like that. Nice and calm. Before I get started on the emotional sobriety, I wanted to talk a little bit about the difference between drug and alcohol addiction, because there is a difference. If you're here, please say hello, whether you're watching live or the rewatch. Trying a few things now. We're in another group, which I would like everybody to support. Olivia runs it. Together We Can, and I'll be sending out invites to people in the group to go check them out. We're going to collaborate a little bit. So thank you to all the groups that are letting me do that. And if there's anything we can do, of course, let me know. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the difference between the addiction between drugs and alcohol. So when it comes to alcoholism, we are born with it. There's nothing you can do about it. Absolutely nothing. Okay? It's the way it is. That's where we get our addiction from. A lot of times this will come along with trauma, other things like that. But cards were kind of stacked against you from the very beginning. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. Right? Then we'll take drugs as an example. People aren't really liking this topic so far. Anybody can be addicted to drugs. Anybody. That's the difference. I've known a lot of people that, did a lot of harder drugs that drink normally. Alcohol wasn't their problem. Actually, I've got a few friends like that. And you don't know. See, so, and people would, and I'm certainly not in NA or anything, but I would probably abide by their rules, where if they say, alcohol is a substance that can lead you back to that, then I would probably listen to that. Okay. There's got to be something in that, right? So let's talk about emotional sobriety. Let's go ahead and get to it. I just don't think Facebook is helping me much here. All right. Well, let's get started. So this is actually in The Language of the Heart, which is a set of Grapevine articles that Bill W. had written. This one is called The Next Frontier, Emotional Sobriety. So I'll do a little bit of reading, and when I look up, there should be people on. The Next Frontier, Emotional Sobriety, January 1958. This article is the substance of a letter wrote to a close friend who also had troublesome depression. I think many Ulsters who have put our AA booze cure to severe but successful tests still find that they often lack emotional sobriety. Perhaps they will be the spearhead for the next major development in AA, the development of much more real maturity and balance, which is to say, humility in our relationship with ourselves, with our fellows, and with God. Now that next major development did start to happen. It happened. Notice that there are certain words that really aren't in the big book, like trauma, ADHD. They talk about depression though. It's because we didn't know these things yet. We didn't know. We weren't even really what we were just on the cusp of understanding what PTSD was, and it's taken forever just to get any kind of help on it, right? So those next major developments did happen for a much more mature AA. Those adolescent urges that so many of us had for top approval, perfect security, and perfect romances, urges quite appropriate to age 17, prove to be an impossible way of life when we are at the age of 47 or 57. So what they're saying is we haven't grown up emotionally. In that part, that's what they're talking about. Bill is saying that we are 47 years old and we're still acting like we're 17, and it's not appropriate. Mm-hmm. We will throw ourselves down on the floor and scream and yell and all sorts of things just to get what we want. Since AA began, I've taken immense wallops in all these areas because of my failure to grow up emotionally and spiritually. My God, how painful it is to keep demanding the impossible, and how very painful to discover finally that all along we've had the cart before the horse. Then comes the final agony of seeing how awfully wrong we have been, but still finding ourselves unable to get off the emotional merry-go-round. How to translate right mental conviction into right emotional result, and so into easy, happy, and good living. Well, that's not only the neurotics problem, it's the problem of life itself for all of us who've got to the point where to the point of real willingness to hew right principles in all of our affairs. Even then, as we hew away, peace and joy may still elude us. And so what he's saying is, even then, as we hew away, that description would be me working with my therapist, becoming aware of what is going on with me, and then working on those problems to become a different person, to become a better person. And we'll kind of we're going to delve into this a little bit more. That's the place so many of us AA holdsters have come to, and it's a hell of a spot, literally. How shall our unconscious, from which so many of our fears, compulsions, and phony aspirations will still stream, be brought in line with what we actually believe, know, and want? How to convince our dumb, raging, and hidden Mr. Hyde becomes our main task. Yeah. See, when you have depression, you fake being well. People with depression usually tend to be happy all the damn time, like impossibly happy all the time, because they've gotten very good at hiding Mr. Hyde. My PTSD, same thing. Right? Now that I know my triggers and I'm aware of my triggers, I can work with those though. I've recently come to believe that this can be achieved. I believe so because I began to see many benighted ones, folks like you and me, commencing to get results. And I agree with that because I've made a lot of changes in the last year. So I agree with that. And I believe that it can be achieved. Last autumn, depression having no really rational reason, having no really rational cause at all, almost took me to the cleaners. I began to be scared that I was in for another long crying spell. Considering the grief I've had with the depression, it wasn't a bright prospect. I kept asking myself, why can't the 12 steps work to release depression? By the hour, I stared at the St. Francis prayer. It's better to comfort than to be comforted. Here was the formula, all right, but why didn't it work? Suddenly, I realized what the matter was. My basic flaw had always been dependence, almost absolute dependence on people or circumstances to supply me with prestige, security, and the like. Failing to get these expectations, failing to get these according to my perfectionist dreams and specifications, I had fought for them, and when came, so did my depression. Yeah, because we continue to try and, hey, Jackie, good to see you. So our basic flaw when it had come to a lot of this, he's talking about his depression, but our main flaw was the fact that we were using other people for our own happiness. Okay, we were using other people for our own emotions, and we can't do that anymore. You're gonna live a miserable life working it that way, right? Now that doesn't mean that you don't want people in your life that support you, right? Well, there's a lot of days where I'm like, I just wish my wife was home. That's all I want in the world. I just want to see my wife, right? Because she makes me feel better. Sometimes just getting a hug from her makes me feel better. There wasn't a chance of making the outgoing love of St. Francis a workable and joyous way of life until these fatal and almost absolute dependencies were cut away. Yeah, I did this to my mom a lot. Yeah, did to her a lot. And a lot of times I just feel like I was setting her up to fail with me. That wasn't very fair, was it? Not at all. Mm-mm. See, what had happened is I came to a place where, you know, it isn't that people haven't done things to me, it's happened, but now it's just a part of my story. It doesn't set me off like it used to. Right? I'm able to look at it without, because PTSD will make you feel like you're living in the moment. Now I can take a look at those, recognize them, and they're in my memory portion over here instead of the it's happening right now portion. Okay? And I've learned how to do that, but that took some practice. It took some therapy, you know. But we're getting to a really good answer here. Because I had over the years undergone a little spiritual development, the absolute quality of these frightful dependencies had never been before been so starkly revealed. Reinforced by what grace I could secure in prayer, I found I had to exert every ounce of will and action to cut off these faulty emotional dependencies upon people, upon AA, indeed, upon any set of circumstances whatsoever. Then only could I be free to love as Francis had. Emotional, instinctual satisfactions I saw were really the extra dividends of having love, offering love, and expressing of love appropriate to each relation of life. Pretty simple, not easy. What, Dion? We're going to have to use our will. Yeah, you still have human will. It hasn't gone away. That's a word. And your human will can be utilized for good. So then only could I be as free to. So what he had to do is he had to exert every ounce of will and action to cut off the faulty emotions. What you know what he did? He went to therapy. That's what he did, and discovered that he probably had some very, very bad self-esteem problems. Oh, yeah, this is self-esteem, guys. most of it. We could probably get into some of the other selves on it too, but mostly this is self-esteem. So he had to work at that. Why? Because you can't really truly love somebody else till you learn to love yourself. That's been my experience. I'll give you a great example of it. My wife has always loved me since we met. This is 1989. Right? And then I knew what love was too. But I relapsed and I went another way, and I had to be taught how to love again. When I came here, I didn't want me alive, let alone happy with myself. And my wife just kept telling me, Deanna, I'm going to love you until you learn how to love yourself. And she did that. Now I know how to love myself, and I can give love back to her in an appropriate way. Instead of make me feel better. No, if I see something wrong, I'm over there, man, giving hugs and kisses and hoping she's okay. Before I didn't do that. I didn't understand it. I didn't know how. Plainly, I could not avail myself to God's love until I was able to offer it back to him by loving others as he would have me. Ooh, that's some pretty deep stuff, man. And I couldn't possibly do that so long as I was victimized by false dependencies. For my dependencies meant demand, a demand for possession and control of the people and conditions surrounding me. Doesn't this sound an awful lot like character defects also? So, okay, I don't think that. So, depression is not a mental defect, is not a character defect. It is a mental illness. Okay, that is not a flaw. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to put that time, that effort towards it, so that we come into agreement with it, so that we can show other people how to do it. And that's what I do here, right? While those words, absolute dependency, may look like a gimmick, they're the ones that help trigger my release into the present degree of stability and quietness in my mind. Qualities which I am now trying to consolidate by offering love to others, regardless of the return to me. Doing something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Loving somebody the way that they like to be loved, expecting nothing in return. That is humility. That's why I like doing this, because that's totally different topic. All right, that's going to be it for this daily reflections. So it was the Jackie and Dion show today. Thanks for being here. It was good to see you. And I will see you guys tomorrow for the daily reflection. All right. Love you. Peace out.